Aaron Tuttle here. It's storm season in Oklahoma, and with that comes torrential rain, high winds, and hail. To protect your home and your family from these threats, the one roofing company you should trust is Ferguson Roof Systems. They've been providing
a little technical difficulty there. I don't know what happened, so I had to do a little stop and start on the live stream. So if you guys saw the hiccup on YouTube or Rumble or Twitter or whatever, now you know why what's going on. Yeah, if you don't press the button, you're in trouble. I didn't press the button. All right, we got it under control though. Let me load up my phone because I was a little preoccupied trying to figure out what was going on. All right, let me mute this thing. Where are we? Right here. Okay. Glad you're with me. At least somebody's on time. I try to be on time at 9:30. Okay, so we are in the house. Thanks for joining me. Meteorologist Aaron Tuttle with you. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's get on with it. By the way, thank you guys for tuning in on Rumble and also on Twitter and on Facebook as well. Good to see you in the house as always. And yeah, some of you guys just got notified that I'm back on Twitter. They now show my stuff since I had to pay for a subscription. It was free back when I was on it. Now you got to pay to come back. Anyway, so now they'll show me my stuff or show you my stuff. They say. So whatever. It is what it is. And on Facebook, of course, you guys always got to see it. Okay. I put in the comment section how you can join the broadcast channel, the Facebook broadcast channel whenever I go live, that way you don't miss anything. So make sure you click on that at any point in time during the broadcast. So tonight we're going to talk about obviously the big $1 million question, right? Are we going to get severe weather? And if we are, when, where, what form, all that kind of stuff. And we're just now getting into the window where we can actually start to give you these types of details. Beyond that, it's a lot of wish casting. It's a lot of copying patterns in the past and trying to infer what's going to happen today, because the data that we have is not that well resolved, let's just say. So, whatever. It is what it is. But as we get closer into the window, we can actually start narrowing down and pointing out things that matter. All right, so out there currently, my temperature is 69. I was at 70 here just a moment ago before I started the broadcast. So it is a nice, pleasant evening out there. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to enjoy it. Maybe on the patio. Maybe have a nice little soft drink in your hand. Or a hard drink in your hand. Or maybe something in between your lips. I don't know. It's a crazy world out there now. I don't know what's going on anymore. But regardless, I hope you're enjoying part of that problem with the weather, that aspect of it. All right, so here is the main issue we have for right now. And if you do notice that little spiraling motion into the clouds here, this is on the water vapor channel. This is out west of California, so this is our new storm system. Now, if you will notice, it is not on land, right? So it's still spiraling out right here. It's the upper level low. Once it gets over this area of the country, it gets sampled a lot better. So our data gets a lot better, right? So we're still going to have little limitations in the data from this. We can infer a lot with satellite, but it's not perfect. Balloon soundings are obviously the best. But we'll do what we can do with the current data that's coming on in. So let you know that's the limitation we have coming into tonight's forecast. All right, here's a look at temperatures out there across the state. We're to the 60s and 70s. Like I said, really nice. Still some 50s though up there in the Panhandle region. And we did have a front that moved through here this afternoon and evening. It's a very weak front. Can you make it out? Can you follow the little wind barbs changing direction? Right about like so. So this front will sag to the south overnight into tomorrow. Won't go very far though. And then it'll end up kind of coming back as a warm front a little bit during the day tomorrow. So maybe kind of stationed like this for most of our Wednesday. Trying to somewhat return back to the north. So we'll see. Bottom line is we'll have some cooler temperatures obviously on the north fringe of that and warmer on the south end. And it will be a boundary for some showers and thunderstorms. So let's talk about Thursday. The Storm Prediction Center put out a enhanced risk of severe weather for our Thursday. It kind of circled up here across the eastern Texas Panhandle, western Oklahoma, and southwestern Kansas. And they put some strong verbiage in here, which, again, I think is a little premature because we don't have the high-resolution data yet. And the Storm Prediction Center, their job is to find storms regardless, anywhere and everywhere, and try to draw the big outline for planning purposes, for emergency management, etc. What that has become is a bastardization to where your local hypers will then take that and run it and say, bet the farm on it, it's going to happen. And that's not really how that's intended. And then especially all the wording in it is then made public, which is, again, these are usually forecaster thoughts to forecaster. Now it's forecaster thoughts to public. So they will put in here some verbiage, which had mentioned overall environment supports the potential for strong to intense tornadoes if a discrete mode can be maintained. Now, what you will not hear from all of your local favorite weather people is the big word if. They will conveniently leave that out and just say, strong to intense tornadoes are expected. Now, that is not how that sentence reads. And so that is where we are in the mess that we are today, because that doesn't sell newspapers. If doesn't sell a newspaper. So just let you know, there is some verbiage in here. Like I said, it's a little premature because we don't have the high resolution data, but whatever, it is what it is, and that's what we're going to talk about. Now, I want to show you the AI forecast models for this event and the next couple of events, but I wanted to bring you back to, remember Monday, the big bust, the thing that never happened? All right, you see this was the AI model producing tornadoes across this area. All right, now this is what I had for Oklahoma. So 5%, 10% probability ring right here. And it had some hail over here and wind over here. Now, if you remember, we didn't get any of this, right? So yes, the AI models can bust, just like the human forecaster can bust. So that said, here's a look at the AI model for Thursday. All right, so it does have a little higher category, 15 to 30, across Kansas, northwestern Oklahoma, and the orange shading and yellow around it, brown, and then green, right, for lower probabilities as you get away from this avocado core. Here's a look at the hail over here on the right side, wind on the bottom left side. But again, remember, this could easily bust. It can move around. The models will try to catch up with the new data that comes in and massage it, and we'll see what happens. Now, if you look at the long-term view of what this AI model has done, it highlighted this area here out to our west on Thursday, western Oklahoma, and then on Friday kind of moves it pretty much just to the east of the I-35 corridor, so basically kind of Tulsa area in eastern Oklahoma and on up from there. And then on Saturday just kind of basically puts it all over the state, and then on Sunday back across the eastern third of Oklahoma. So we shall see how all this plans out, but do expect all these things to move around and change strengths and categories and all that, because it's still early in the game. If you do look at the analogs, in other words, you go back to similar pattern, because all we can do is compare similar patterns. No pattern is the exact duplicate, but similar situation for Thursday. Models had a large area here for a 30% probability or higher of severe weather. If we break it down to just tornadoes, it has a 2 to 5% probability. That's extremely low. You see the scale over here? 5, 10, 15, 30, 45, 60. So that is on the bottom end of the scale for the Thursday event. So let's go to Friday. So Friday has a 2 to 5% probability of a tornado here across Oklahoma into eastern half of Kansas. Saturday, back out here to kind of the western parts of the state and the analog data. And then on Sunday, back to the eastern parts of the state. But again, remember, all these numbers are very low. So that's good. You want to see low numbers in the forecast. Okay, so where is this storm system expected to be come Thursday? Well, you remember Monday? We had that upper level low that was pretty much centered right here. Well, guess where this one's centered? Yep, you guessed it, at the same position. Maybe just a hair to the left. This is in the latest NAM data. Now, again, the system is offshore, so when it does get on shore, we'll see if this jogs a little bit. But at least it's starting to get settled back over the Denver, Colorado area, which again focuses a lot of the lift for our system to be just to our north and west, kind of in this little favorite area here, western Kansas, maybe southern Nebraska, and then maybe even down here toward the tip of the panhandle. That's kind of where this pattern favors those types of storms. So if we look at the 300 millibar level, so the jet stream, and we look at the jet streak out of it, the favorable quadrant for lift in the atmosphere is kind of in this little zone that comes up around here off the chart, kind of in that zone I just talked about. So not exactly favorable lift here or down here. So that's a limiting factor. Remember, I'll show you everything. So we're going to show you limiting factors, not just stuff that's going to make you get excited if you want storms. Here's the 500 millibar district that comes in. It's a pretty good track right here over the area in mention here that the Storm Prediction Center had. So that is good if you want some storms. Let's see. Let's go to the 850 millibar late day. We do have a little bit of a jet that does kick in here across the eastern Texas Panhandle. So that is some nice, warm, and southerly wind field to feed into a storm. Now the dry line looks like will be set up out here right around the Amarillo area. Now the dry line separates the moist air out here across the Panhandle region the dry air out there to our moist air, which is coming off the Gulf of Mexico in this region. Now if you look here immediately along this dry line, there's not a lot of convergence. All right, that's a limiting factor. A lot of southerly winds here. That may be a limiting factor to help get some storms to go. Let me zoom into the high-res NAM and see if that changes any. We'll look at the data here. What do I see? Remember, this stuff just came in, so I'm going to look at it live with you for a little bit. Let's see here. I see a little bit of a dry line punch in this area, but it mixes out. The winds don't really go too far back on the southeast of it. But this would be a little bit of a favored area for a thunderstorm to try to develop in this little spot here, which is basically west-northwest of Childress and southeast of Amarillo. Otherwise, nothing fancy up here. A little bit of a nudge here for the Panhandle region back into Kansas. So we'll see what happens with that. Let's take a look at the instability. And I'm going to go back to the high-res NAM for this one as well. So we'll see what happens here. So you have a nice triangular shape from the southeast wind to the southwest wind with height. So in other words, you have turning with height in the atmosphere. So that does look pretty decent in that little spot. And we can do a point forecast sounding. This is again in northwest Texas, southeast Texas Panhandle. We'll see what we're working with. Now the model has a possible hazard type of a tornado with significant hail all the way up to 5 inches in diameter. That's a big monster hail. Ship score is 2.9. So yeah, that's definitely over 2-inch size hail. Decent capes, obviously 3,000, but a very stout cap. See this little red line that jots out here to the right of it? That's very strong. That cap can only be eroded if we hit a temperature of 90 degrees, and that ain't going to happen. The sounding has a temperature right now of 79. So in other words, the area is capped. That's why it's important about the convergence on the dry line. So we might get a storm at all because of what's happening right there. All right, I haven't looked at the output yet, so we're going to see if the model actually produces a storm in that area based off these parameters. So let's go with the tornado parameter. And the model does highlight this whole eastern half of the Panhandle loaded with instability and some of the ingredients to produce tornadoes in that area. Now, if you notice, it doesn't have anything for western Oklahoma. It's all squeezed in this little corridor here across the eastern Texas Panhandle right about dark, right about 7 o'clock. All right. Let's take a look at the cap strength situation here. Yeah, very strong cap across the entire state. So that's you see these numbers here when they're in the negatives, high numbers. For example, I'll just click Oklahoma City. This is on Thursday, just to show you. Look at this. See this? That's a monster cap. All right, that means no big severe storms for us. We're probably going to have a little bit of rain and some light elevated thunderstorms maybe in the morning hours, maybe late morning move out. Other than that, with that kind of a forecast sound, you're not going to get afternoon severe weather. Let's go out here to western Oklahoma and see what the cap looks like. Look at that. It's still there. Big cap. Cap, remember, saves the day. If you have a big cap, you can't get storms. So you like a cap if you don't want storms. All right, so out here in the panel, obviously, is where we're going to try to get that lift along the dry line to try to get some thunderstorms to go. And it looks like there are some lower numbers here of sin. So I will pick a sweet spot. In other words, if I look at the lowest part of the model data to give it the best benefit of the doubt. And it does show at this point in time, if I were to run this up, it just barely has a cap. In other words, very, very weak here. So in theory, you should be able to get a thunderstorm that goes with a little bit of that convergence on the dry line. In that little sweet spot, should this exactly pan out, right here in the eastern Texas Panhandle. Now, that's a close call. Doesn't mean that the model will still produce it. So let's take a look. So here's the latest model data comes in. Let's see what happens. So by the way, late tonight, into tomorrow morning, you see this right here? We're going to get a lot of elevated showers and thunderstorms that roll through. So for your drive time tomorrow morning, you're going to get a little bit of wet here in central and western Oklahoma. Some of these might have a little bit of hail with them. Some small hail, like dime size, peas, that kind of deal. As we head into the late morning hours, that travels off to the east and south. And we'll zoom into this here in a minute. Then there's Tulsa getting in some action by lunchtime. And then throughout the day, there's more showers and thunderstorms there across the northeastern third of the state. Otherwise cloudy, occasional sprinkles elsewhere. All right, let's go on into Thursday morning, very early. Again, another round of some showers and thunderstorms there in northeast Oklahoma. And that moves on off as well into Kansas and Missouri and Arkansas. Again, the same thing. Brief heavy rain, maybe some tiny hail mixed in. All right, so let's go see what happens Thursday afternoon. Okay, here we go. 4 or 5 o'clock. See this? Have our first little storm trying to go up. Let's see what happens with it. It's not doing too good. It's moving up to the north. It's a bad indication. Went due north. Raced off to the north. All right, that means it did not get anchored, meaning it did not get down to the boundary layer, which means it was elevated and weak and didn't do anything. Might have had a little small hail with it. That's all she wrote. All right, let's go to the 7 o'clock hour. Remember, we took a sweet spot forecast sounding right here in the eastern Texas panel. Anything happen with that? Nope. There's 7, 8, 9 o'clock. Still nothing. 10 o'clock, 11, 12. All right, there's 1 o'clock in the morning. Nothing. All right, there's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. Okay, so now we're finally getting some thunderstorms bubbling up here in southwestern Oklahoma, northwestern Texas panhandle. So again, however, we must sample the atmosphere to show you what's going on. Now, this particular time, so this is right around the midnight hour for Oklahoma City. So the NAM does say we are completely saturated to the lower levels of the atmosphere. However, let me run my little line here. It's going to be a little thick. But if I were to run my line right up, it's like so. What happens is, you can barely see because it's a little thick here, but we have this area that's to the right of this yellow line, all negative lift. So this is all of our SEN. In other words, our cap strength is still there. It's elevated, very thick distance as well. And of course, we have a lot less instability at nighttime. So between this red line and the yellow line, there's not a whole lot of instability left to work with. So that's what reality says. Now, of course, if you were to forecast a temperature of 79 degrees, which isn't going to happen, because that's what it would have to be to break this area that we're talking about. And we're overnight temperature, right? We're 68 degrees. It does have a possible hazard type of a PDS tornado, which means particularly dangerous situation of a tornado, with an EF4 on the whisker plot down here. But again, this means nothing if you can't break the cap and it's all elevated. So more than likely, just like on Monday, any storms that do develop will start here, and they'll ride on this little instability layer here. Well, that's great. I can produce some hail for you, maybe pockets of wind here and there, but mostly hail and some heavy rain, but it can't tap through this to get down here into the boundary layer to get available shear for producing a tornado. And the matter of fact, the significant hail is up around 4 inches in diameter and ship model of 3. So that would be some big hail overnight, again, assuming that you could get some storms rooted, which doesn't look like it's going to happen because it looks like the cap will hold. So that is probably why you get this kind of an elevated mixture here of a pseudo squall line, which would be an elevated line. Let's go through the next hour. That goes through all of central Oklahoma. And then, let's go to the next hour after that. So this is by Friday morning. Move Tulsa. It's out of Oklahoma City. It's in the rest of the southeastern part of the state for Friday. And that will continue to move on to this direction for the rest of the morning hours to Arkansas, Missouri, etc. So once again, it's an overnight situation because the system's coming in at the wrong time. It's coming in late. It's late to the party. Therefore, it doesn't have the best ingredients in the atmosphere to work with. Therefore, you end up with more of a cap to deal with. All right, so let's take a close-up look. I know that was kind of hard to see if you're trying to zoom in where you live. So here again, it's 6 a.m., 7, 8. So there's those showers and thunderstorms for tomorrow morning, moving through southern and eastern Oklahoma. By lunchtime, looks like they kind of move out of Oklahoma City. Still some sprinkles around, though. There's that heavier line of showers and thunderstorms from Enid to Stillwater, Tulsa, Muskogee. Again, maybe some pockets of small hail in some of these. That moves on up to Tulsa for the rest of the afternoon, Bartlesville, etc. And then that kind of starts to wind down by Wednesday evening. There's some overnight light shower activity, kind of continues in the data through Thursday morning. Then there's that new development of some elevated activity, again in northeast Oklahoma for Thursday during the morning hours. And otherwise, central Oklahoma kind of dry but cloudy, which means we'll probably be cooler and wetter. And again, that's another factor in keeping the cap from breaking. You have to get really hot and steamy to allow that cap to break, and that's not happening. There's that little weak shower we talked about up across the panhandle that broke out and did nothing. And then let's go forward to midnight, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. There's that line, broken line of thunderstorms here in southwestern Oklahoma. So we're trying to get a little bit of an elevated squall line look to it. So I will tell you this, though, in some cases, when you do get this, we'll see. You may end up with a kind of what we call a MCS or a QLCS type situation. You might get some of those small baby tornadoes, those little QLCS type tornadoes along the leading edge of the complex. But again, with the cap, that should help to limit those. But it could happen there because they're not traditional tornado producing storms like we normally have with a supercell. So it's different, different way to produce them. So they may not behave that well when it comes to a stronger cap because they're just really like weak little vortexes on the leading edge. It's almost like a glorified dust devil picks up a little spot of vorticity, stretches it into an updraft that comes in on leading edge, and then there you go, you got yourself a baby tornado. Lasts very short-lived, usually very small. So that may be a situation we deal with on Thursday night. Other than that, at least we do have a signal for some rain. Because remember that last Monday event with a similar outcome? We barely got any storms. So this at least has a better, stronger indication of that. Okay, so temperatures, like we talked about, because the cap looks like we'll build in. Let's see if we can erode it with heat. So let's go to tomorrow. We'll be in the 60s and 70s across the state. So other than a few clouds, a few sprinkles, and some of those elevated showers and thunderstorms, not terrible as far as temperatures go. A little cooler, though, to the north. Okay, so Wednesday night into Thursday, let's see what happens. All right, so Thursday, lunchtime, we're at 70 degrees here in Oklahoma City, down south and west. Cooler up in northeast Oklahoma. Okay, so 5, 6 o'clock, here we go. Out here in the Panhandle, it's in the 80s. Of course, they're behind the dry line. If you recall, the dry line was doing something like this. All right, and then on the eastern side of the dry line, they're into the low 70s. All right, so you really need to get this into the upper 70s to really help to break the cap on the dry line. So we'll see what happens. It's not overly favorable for severe storms to break out here, and the data is not there. In other words, the model thinks it won't happen. So there you go. All right, so let's go into Friday morning, and that is where we have cooler weather coming in from the west. Temperatures dropping down just because the dry line is on the move. And if I were to look at the dew point map from that, we'll do that real quick. Yeah, there it is. Oh, okay. So what happens is, let's see, where are we? Right about here. Okay, so that's 8, 9 o'clock. And then at some point here, yep, midnight. That's what you got to do. So at midnight, if you'll notice, you'll get a little bit of a westerly wind here out ahead of your, or behind your southwesterly wind here. So this is kind of like the original dry line, all right, for the southwest wind. But then you have these winds that come in with the cold front, with that storm system that come in, and they catch up to it. And once that happens, then it just forms one big solid line, and then that moves east overnight. So that's what helps to trigger those thunderstorms that develop out here in southwest Oklahoma, etc. Okay, so let's look at that. Let me see here. Long range, as far as rainfall goes, the European really likes to dump it. A lot of rainfall here. It's going a little crazy for tomorrow on the northeastern quadrant of the state with these showers and thunderstorms, just repetitively over and over. There might be a little convective feedback going on in some of that. Now for Thursday, the European tries to break out some stuff here in the Panhandle. A little spot up here in southwestern Kansas. And then that activity, believe it or not, it tries to at least do something that does move eastward across the northwestern part of Oklahoma during the early evening hours up here in northwest Oklahoma. Then that moves through overnight into pretty much right along the border. Some other stuff develops in Tulsa. Let's see. And then it has that little secondary squall line, kind of like what the NAM did, moving through central and southern Oklahoma. And then that moves on out, etc. Let's see. For Friday, did it do anything more? No, there's the afternoon. So nothing Friday. It keeps it dry across the state. And then there's Saturday morning. Stops there with the new data that came in today. But if you look at the rainfall amounts, it went really excessive. 7, 5, 9 inches of rain. And it's been moving around, all right, just so you know. Or earlier it had this big batch right over here in the metro. Now it's over here. And it's hit and miss. So it's not going to be that, it's not going to be, accurate as far as telling exactly where these heavy bands of rain are going to be. And honestly, that looks a little excessive to me. If we were to take a look at the comparison for other models, just at that time frame, just to kind of give you an idea. So this is the AI version, which is a smooth down version. You don't see 9 inches here for the European like you do here. All right, the GFS says 1 to 2 inches of rain. Icon model, there's 1 to 2. There's a spot there, 3 or so. The NAM model, not much. That's something way up here, northeast Oklahoma. you take a model blend, half an inch to an inch, inch and a half, and UK Met 1 to 2 inches of rain. So again, if you're going to look at rainfall totals, what you would do is you'd blanket 1 to 2 inches of rain across this favorite area like we talked about because of the frontal position, and then the additional storms that will come in later. And then, as we do know, if you ever get underneath some really heavy thunderstorm, you can pick up a quick 1 to 2 inches of rain just from that thunderstorm. Depends on how fast it moves, if it's training, if there's another one behind it. In those cases, that's how you can pick up a little bit higher amounts, but 9 inches seems excessive right now, so I wouldn't bet the farm on that one. You'd have to see a lot more continuity with that model, and others kind of agree with it. All right, so temperatures, by the way, for Wednesday, a little cooler, and Thursday, models favor us to try to get into the mid-70s here in Oklahoma City. This is a model blend, so we'll see. There's going to be some models that are going to be too hot naturally anyway, which will kind of skew the data a little bit too warm. It probably won't be that warm, so it'll probably be like low 70s, 73, 74. Meanwhile, Friday, warmer, 82. Saturday, 80, and over the weekend. So temperatures look pretty decent, at least that is concerned, even on into next week. All right, so we've done that. The newer data came in here as we were talking. I'm going to go back to this map here, and we'll see if any other data has come in that goes out that far that I want to see. Oh, I'll tell you what, I'm going to show you this. This actually came in this morning. This is one of our experimental models that actually is doing pretty good. I've been watching it here this spring season. Now, I didn't check it to see if it got these thunderstorms out here in Texas as well. Didn't even pay attention. It wasn't in our area, so I paid no attention. But let's see what it does. So there's our Wednesday stuff. Moving off. Doesn't have nearly as much as what the other models did. But at least the signal's still there. All right. But what I was curious about is what does it do in the panhandle? So if you look here in the panhandle for 4 or 5 o'clock, it does develop some thunderstorms along the dry line from Kansas here into just east of Amarillo, etc. Right? Now, here's the key. What does it do with those? That's the main thing. All right. So let's say they develop out there and they're in a very favorable environment to produce hail, damaging winds, maybe tornado or something. How do they look once they get out of that environment and they move into western Oklahoma? Right. So there's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. You see what just happened? They literally disintegrated. I mean, gone. Let's go into the next hour. Go back over here. So there we go. So there we go. Disintegrated. And in the final hour, they're all gone. One guy left hanging back here, and that's about it. Okay, and that goes through 7 o'clock. So what that should tell you is that the cap is very strong in this area. And once these storms get out of that little very narrow corridor of a lower sin, in other words, a weaker cap, and all those other parameters for tornadoes, once they get out of that little sweet spot, they fall apart. So right now, that's the data. That's everything. So look, everybody has access to this same type of stuff, I would imagine, and it's all there. Now, you have a choice, when you're doing the weather and you're looking at this stuff. You can ignore certain aspects of data, and you can not even look at it, and you can pick the model of your choice and just go with that. So there's a lot of different things you can do, and then you can pick your statement. What are you wanting to convey? Are you wanting to go gloom and doom? Are you wanting to not show what might not even happen and just go all in? What's your game plan with that, right? Matter of fact, I'm going to show you the Texas Tech WRF because I like this model too. I haven't seen what it did here from midday run. So it did produce one little storm there in the northeast Texas panhandle. Okay, that quickly disappeared once it tried to cross in Oklahoma. That tried to produce, looks like another one, southwest, and that fell apart. And another one, southwest and west central Oklahoma during the midnight hour. And those aren't doing too hot, but there's a little bit of a signal there. At least they're getting some elevated thunderstorms. How you know they're not weak, or how you know they're not strong, they're pretty weak. They don't have these little helicity tracks with them. And the reflectivity value in here, the predicted reflectivity value is in the yellow, which is 35 to 40 dBz. If they were like 50 or 65 or something, that would tell you they were surface-based in the way you interpret the output of the data. So even this model isn't all that impressed with Thursday. And that's not even looking at the evening run stuff. This is the earlier midday. So there you go. So that's it. That's everything. So the forecast will get more accurate and more fine-tuned starting with tomorrow morning, because again that system will start to be on shore, and we'll have better balloon sounding information of all that. And then I'll be able to tell you, fill in a little bit more. We'll see, if the cap strength increases or whatever. As I alluded to or even mentioned at lunchtime today, you cannot say the tornado threat is increasing. All right, it's a misnomer, it's a falsehood, it's garbage. If somebody says it, throw it out. It's pointless. The only two ways you can actually say a tornado threat is increasing is two methods. One, when you're actually tracking a severe thunderstorm, right? A supercell or maybe a squall line that looks like it's going to have a QLCS in it. And you can watch that like in a nowcast format. In other words, minute by minute, second by second. And you can visualize what's happening on the storm. You can look at what's happening in the environment the storm is into. And then you can do it looks like the tornado threat is increasing. Okay? That's logical, right? So that information you can act on. You can do something with that. All right? It requires no long-term anxiety to deal with that situation. It's, okay, I'm paying attention. Storm is intensifying. Looks like it's going to produce a tornado, so therefore the threat's increasing. Got it. Going into my shelter. That's it. That is the best and probably the most accurate way to use that phrase and term. Forecasting side. All right, now let's get out of that. Let's go to nowcasting. We'll go to the forecasting side. Because there's so many limitations in our science and in our data collection, honestly, the best window to even state that is starting to increase is the day of the event. Meaning, so, most of our events are in the, late afternoon and evening. So you look at the morning data. The morning data is your best and final guess, like you're playing a game show. That's your final answer, So that's where the models, they've got the best of the best. They're all within their short-term window. They've all ingested the best data we have at that moment. And at that point in time, then the environment says, yeah, it looks like our environment is a lot better for tornadoes, and the cap was well sampled, and it's not going to be a problem today. It's going to weaken, in this spot and in this spot. Then you can say, hey, in this spot, meaning, maybe it's far western Oklahoma, maybe it's the Woodward area, maybe it's Amarillo. You can say, looks like the tornado threat is increasing. All right. Those are two, no problem, ways to use that phrase and understanding. Outside of that, it's garbage, it's hype, it's hysteria. It does nothing for you. It's blanket stupidity because your follow-up question is, okay, where? And that answer can't be given. That's the issue. If you can't assign a time and a location to your open-ended tornado threat increasing statement, then that's not a statement at all. It's garbage. So you have to be able to associate that with a specific direct course of action and something valuable. That way, it's kind of like, for example, I'm going to dumb this down even better. Let's say there's tornado warning. Now, we do tornado warnings usually for like a county or smaller area, okay? I'm going to say, in this case, we're going to issue a tornado warning across the entire state of Oklahoma. Now, you're probably thinking, well, that doesn't make any sense. Sure doesn't. Of course not. Neither is just saying the tornado threat is increasing, because both of those are ridiculous. You obviously don't want to have the entire state of Oklahoma taking shelter from a tornado when it's only in one spot of the state, in one tiny little square mile area, or maybe even an area that's only 300 yards, right? That'd be foolish to tell the entire state to take shelter. Same thing when you tell everybody to panic or plan or prepare for tornado increasing, and you tell everybody it's for the whole area. That's not accurate. This is garbage. So I saw somebody had posted that the other day, and I just shake my head and just like, I'm like one man fighting this big monster wave. It's like the dam that breaks. You put your finger in it, and then there's another crack, and I put my finger in that one. And there's another idiot, and I put my finger in that idiot. It just keeps going. It's like, I'm never going to win this. So I'm just letting you know what goes on behind the scenes. That way you can do it. You guys can all put your fingers in the cracks, and you can say, hey, enough of that. So I'll tell you where the signs can stop, and then where it gets stretched, and then where it's just all nonsense. Now remember, there are people that love this type of weather, okay? So when you see their posts and it's pro storms, it's probably because they want the storms, right? Honestly, when I was younger, I was pro storms. I liked the storms, right? I was looking for ingredients to make it happen. Now that I'm 50, I'm like, get off my lawn. I'm not interested in this. I don't care less. I don't want any storms. I want to go to bed. I don't have any problems with my lawn furniture, my house. I want to sleep sound, So I'm probably on the opposite end of the spectrum now. So I look for reasons as to why this isn't going to happen. So that way I got a good balance. So I look at all and I tell you everything that there is. I tell you the pros and the cons. That way you'll see it, and it's not a wish cast, which is what you're going to see a lot of times from various sources. So, and it's funny as I get yelled at for, why are you calling these various sources out? I say, I don't say no names. It's like, I don't know. I'm telling you, I don't tell you who the names are. I'm just telling you what is out there in the field because I see it. So, anyway, so that was it for me. Of course, I'm going to do a live. What time is it now? Ooh, I got to get going. I'll do a live, of course, at lunchtime tomorrow and tomorrow evening. And let's see, and then, of course, Thursday for lunchtime. And then Thursday evening, right? And if there is going to be tornadoes for Thursday in the late afternoon or evening, for example, or even overnight, that I would track those live on coverage. And so right now, it's not overly impressive as far as the data is concerned. Like I said, just because events happened in the past with a similar pattern doesn't always mean they'll happen again this time around. And people kind of lose sight of that. So we'll see. Every day is a day by day. That's when you get your best data anyways. A lot of everything outside of that is a lot of speculation. And you don't get too carried away with it because what are you going to do with it anyways, right? Otherwise, you end up with a boy who cried wolf situation for the billionth time. And I swear at some point you guys will check out and say, that's it, I'm done with this. And then a big storm will happen and they'll be like, well, you didn't say anything. Or whatever. And that's the other thing is, and I got to bring this up to you, this is because you're being conditioned and it's wrong. And when I say that is, this is my last thing, I'm going to let you go. Like I said, this is a very important thing to catch hold. Don't lose track of this. You are conditioned from the moment you're a toddler. Actually, from the moment you come out of the womb, you're conditioned. You're conditioned to eat, right? On the mama. So from that point forward, you are conditioned from various people in your life. All right? It can be your loved ones. It could be government. It could be your teachers, whatever. All right? So in this particular case, for the weather, you're being conditioned that you must now be told a week in advance that there's a threat of tornadoes, right? And somehow you have to now plan in your mind and whatever, a week in advance, you're going to get tornadoes wherever you live at your place. Obviously, that alone is ridiculous, but let's just go with that, all right? So that's your conditioning. So you're now coming to expect it. You're also expecting at the same time that they're going to bust on the forecast and it'll never happen, and you're going to leave some snarky comment on their feed. All right, so you've obviously been conditioned to that. So here's the issue with that. If you get used to being told every time you turn on the TV, it's Armageddon's coming, Armageddon's coming, Armageddon's coming. Is it 5 days, 4 days, 3 days, 2 days? Okay, it's finally here. Oh, the cap held, nothing's going to happen today. And you're going to be like, what? Okay, so now take that away. And then all of a sudden, there's been no talk of tornadoes. You've had 5-6 days of nothing mentioning about anything. And the day of, all of a sudden, there's a tornado that hits in your backyard, in your area. And you're like, what? I didn't have my 6-7 days of warning. Where were you guys? I'm conditioned to be told for 7 days to prepare this tornado. And you guys didn't tell me within what, an hour? What am I supposed to do with that? I can't plan for an hour. I need 7 days to plan. So you see how this whole thing just goes completely awry. So that's why I detest the whole idea. So remember, the Storm Prediction Center, what they're doing is they're trying to extend what they can possibly do with science with the best guess. And it's not good. I just let you know it's horrible. Track record's horrible. They're still trying to do it, right? And the idea, again, is for planning for government use and a lot of stakeholders in this whole industry that require weather, big money, etc. All right, so this is all tied into that. Somehow that has now been taken, given to you, that you must now know 7 days away there's going to be severe producing storms with tornadoes. All right, and that's not how that whole thing is designed. It's not supposed to be that way. So it's a bastardization of the whole science, the whole process. So I need you to understand that way, when you don't get your 5 days of warning lead up, and then all of a sudden you have a day where I didn't know we're supposed to have tornadoes today. Nobody told us anything like that for X number of days. Yeah, that's going to happen, and then you're going to be upset. And you're, like I said, you've been conditioned to think that you can get a 5 day or 7 day ahead of time warning. That's just not the way it works. So just be cognizant of that with the weather. That's why I like to stick with 48 hours. We're talking about tornadoes. Anything beyond that, yeah, you can do forecasts all the time. When it comes to storms in general, rain in the forecast, those kind of conditions, not a problem. But when you're talking about very specific entities called supercells, or even squall line formations, a lot of that stuff's not known for 24 to 48 hours out. All right. That's it. It's just limitation of the science. And that's why all of our, quote, CAM models, which are convective allowing models, run in that window. There's a few they've tried to extend out to 60 hours just to see how well they do. Not bad, not the greatest, but hey, it's better than nothing. But again, once we get from 48 inward, it gets better and better and better. So I just want you guys to understand the whole process, how all that stuff works. So that way, when you do see all this stuff, at least you now know the backstory, the inside scoop, what to take serious and what not, and how to process it, and how to compartmentalize it, and then what to do with it. Honestly, if somebody told me personally, hey, we have in 7 days from now, we're going to have tornadoes, I'm like, okay, whatever, dude. And I just completely dismiss the person. Cause it's ridiculous. All right, now if somebody tells me the day of, okay, you got my attention. I can do something with that. The day before, no problem. You say, might have some tornadoes around the area tomorrow. Okay, I can plan with that. If I had something with the kids, or if I had some lunch, or whatever I need to work around, or some client, I can be cognizant of that. Sure, that's something you can probably do on a short-term notice. But outside of that, typically that stuff is super short. As in, okay, my app just told you there's a twisting storm alert. You've got 18 minutes, and it will be at your door. Now that, obviously, is where the majority of your action is going to reside. Short-term in a situation wherever you are, because you never know where you're going to be, and that way you can seek shelter and take cover. So that's the best way that works. So if you don't have it, grab my weather app. It's called AT's Weather to Go. It's free, Apple, Google Play. It'll predict those tornadoes ahead of time, even before you get an official warning from the National Weather Service. So it just gives you extra time to seek shelter. So we will continue to talk about this over the next couple of days, and I'll bring everybody back down. And if we do have tornadoes, we'll talk about that too. It looks like we're going to have it. I'm going to tell you. And I'll tell you the exact spots where I think they'll happen and they'll occur and the timing of it. I think that's the best way to provide that information. And also remember, majority of tornadoes are EF0 to EF1, 80% of them. And those are what I call the baby ones. They don't do a lot of damage, and they're all survivable. And if you have adequate shelter, half the time, it may sound loud, but that's it. You don't even have, like I said, any decent damage from it. The difference is if you're like in an RV, obviously, or a mobile home, you don't want to do that, but that's just the way that situation is. And then even the stronger tornadoes, EF2, EF3, well-built homes, again, they might lose like an exterior wall or a section of a roof, but otherwise the integrity of the home still stays. As long as you're in the middle part of the dwelling, lowest floor, away from all outside walls and windows, you're fine. Luckily, thank goodness, thank God, however you want to look at it, the EF4 and 5s, those are the violent ones, and those are extremely rare. Those make up, I've seen statistics anywhere from 2 to 5% within that range, going back, to the dawn of time. And a lot of those, in my opinion, typically occur with some type of interaction from a boundary. In other words, either an old outflow boundary from another thunderstorm or an old frontal boundary. Something of that nature that adds just a little extra vorticity, baroclinicity to ingest into the thunderstorm to kind of make that tornado kind of kick up a notch, kind of like adding, extra fuel to the fire, so to speak. So in my opinion, that's where a lot of those will come from, and so that's a very rare combination to have. That's probably another reason why they're very rare. So there you go. So that's the good news on those. They do happen. We've had them a couple times here in Oklahoma, obviously, but majority of the time we go season after season, and honestly I have to go back and look at the data. I can't remember the last time we had one, a 4 or 5 here in 99. Obviously everybody remembers that one, 1999. That was 25 years ago. I know we had one since then, 2000, maybe 7 or 8. I have to go back and look, or 13 maybe, somewhere in there. But so that's it. I mean, I think the average is once every 10 years. I think is what it boils down to if you do the whole country, going all the way back. So, like I said, they're very rare, which is good. But all right, so that's it for me. Tim, no, there's no such thing as an EF6. They lowered the speed required for an EF5 because this is all based off of damage and structural integrity. So the wind speeds, they realized they didn't even need to hit 300 miles per hour for that to happen. They could do that at 2, It was 260 or something. I go back and look at my notes. But yeah, so regardless, I mean, doesn't really matter. Okay, so that's it for me. You guys have a great rest of your night, and we will see you on the next broadcasts. And I appreciate you stopping by. Make sure you like and share the video. Tell your friends and family about AT's weather, and they will get all the science without all the hype right here. Okay, take care, everybody. Good night.